What's up YouTube, this is Coding for Noobs and welcome to your 19th Java programming tutorial. And in this tutorial we're actually going to start using files. So we're going to learn how to write to a file in this tutorial, and then in our 20th tutorial we'll learn how to read from that file. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new project to work from, and that's because I'm going to actually give you the source code at the end of this tutorial. So it's just going to be easier for me to get the code for you and send it without ruining another class when we start the next tutorial. So right away I'm just going to do new Java project, and I'm going to call it file handler. And pretty much in here we have just our source folder, and we're just going to do new class, and we're just going to call it a driver for our class name, and then we're going to have public static void main checked, and we're going to hit finish. And then you'll see everything's generated for us, and cool. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to import a namespace. And before we've done import java.util so we could use our scanner, but instead this time we're going to do import java.io and then dot and then star semicolon. And what this is going to do is it's going to import the IO namespace. And with the IO namespace, we can actually do file handling. So that's all we need for file handling, this IO namespace. And pretty much in the IO namespace, there's a bunch of built-in stuff that we use for reading and writing to files. And we're actually going to learn how to use something called a print writer today. Real quick, I'm just going to say a comment. So this is the main entry point of our application, and then I'm going to comment up here, this is for file handling. The next thing we're going to do actually is we're going to use the random function that we created in our last project, so this right here, and I'm just going to copy and paste it into our new project just to save a little bit of time, but great, it ruined the alignment. Basically what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to create an array of random numbers, and then with that array we're going to write it to a file. So the next thing we're going to have to do is some variable declaration, and with this variable declaration we're actually going to create int array equals new int, and we're going to create an array of 100 integers. So basically our array variable is actually 100 different integers. If you don't remember what arrays are, I suggest you go back and watch our array tutorial. I believe it was like tutorial somewhere between 12 and 16. The next thing we're going to do is create one more variable, and that's going to be called our print writer, and I believe it's like this, print writer file out, I'm going to call it, equals new print writer, and then we need to do new file writer, and then we're going to need our file path inside those quotes. And I'll explain this in a second, but real quick, we haven't actually worked with strings before, but we're going to start right now. So we're going to declare our first string variable in this programming series, and as you can see we do capital S and then string, and what a string is it's a group of characters, and what a character would be like just one letter. So we have like C or A or S, you know, stuff like that. And what a string does is it would be like CAS kind of thing. So right away we're going to have string, and then we're going to have file path equals new string, and then our file path is going to be random.txt. So basically what we're doing here is we're just creating a new string, and our string is equal to random.text. We can also assign a value to file path, so our string like this, random.text, if we wanted to, or set it equal to random.text right here, but I like doing it this way where we do new string like that. So right away we're actually going to remove this quotation now, and we're actually going to replace it with file path. So what we're doing here is we've created a new variable. It's a print writer variable, or object I guess I should say now, and we're calling it file out. And what our file out print writer does is it creates a new file writer, which is what is actually used to write to the file. And it's creating a like output kind of writer, file output writer, with the variable or at the path of file path, which is actually going to be inside of our project folder. I believe it's in my Java tutorial. Yeah, so this the file is actually going to be output here. As you see, it's actually underlined in red, and that's because we actually have an error right now, and that is we don't have our IO exception handler. So basically we're just going to hover over and add throws IO exception, and basically what this means is if there's an error occurs, this method is the one that's going to handle the error for this object. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our process part of our application. So during process, we're actually going to generate 100 random numbers and store them in an array, and then we're going to use our print writer to output them to the file path, and that's going to be our output. So we can actually call our process of this program process/input, and really quickly we're just going to use something that we've learned before. So for int I equals 0, and then while I is less than our array.length I++, so we're just going to loop through every number in our array, or every index in our array, and really quickly we're just going to do array I equals create random int, and then we're going to have a random number between 1 and 100. So what we're doing right now is we've created our variable, so we have our file path stored in the variable file path, and then we have our print writer, which is what we're going to use to output our array to a file, to the file random.txt, and then we have our array, which initially has no value. Well, it has 100 values in it, but they're all equal to 0. And then to change the values inside it, we're just going to run a basic counted loop that we learned before in a previous tutorial, and our random number function, and so it's going to set each index in the array to a random number between 0 and 100. The next thing we're going to do is some output. So to finish our basic IPO program, we now have to loop through and write each of these variables into our file path, or into our file at our file path. So to do this, we're actually going to do another loop. So for int I equals 0, I is less than array.length I++. So what we're doing here is loop through all values in the array. So I'm just going to actually copy and paste this comment up here as well. That way those of you who look at the source will understand what's happening. And alright, so now that we're looping through again, we're going to have to do something else. So instead of storing a value in the array, we're actually going to output the value in the array. So to output it to the file, we do file out dot, and then I believe it's write, and then array I, and that should be it. And we could do this and by doing this, basically what we're going to be doing is writing out each value in the array to the file. But the problem with this is it's all going to be written to the same line. So when our variables are output, like it's just going to be like 0, 1, 45, 90, or 29, 95, and to make it right on each line, we're actually going to do something called print ln, which is just like writing to our console window. And what that's going to do is each time it writes a new value, it's just going to create a new line for us, so it looks like this instead. And that's just a little bit neater for us later, and will help us when we create our next project. So now that we have that done, so we're just going to say write each value of the array to its own line. That's about it. The only thing left that we have to do is close our file stream. And what this means is we're actually just going to be closing up and like disposing of resources. You don't really understand what that is yet, but pretty much like your file is going to be locked unless you close this, because our file out is actually going to lock it when we're writing to it. That way no other programs can interfere with what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and right away and run this, and we haven't seen anything in the console window because we actually didn't output anything, but when we go into our Java tutorials and file handler, we can actually see that we have our text folder or text file right here, and we have all of our random, like 100 random numbers right here. And just to prove that it's random, let's just look. We have 6, 73, 92. Let's run it again and see what happens. So the program finished running, and we run it again. We have 31, 37, 26, 2, completely different numbers than last time. So that's how we do some basic file writing. In our next tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to read these back into the array, and we'll output them in the console window instead of to a file. I hope you learned something about file writing in this tutorial, and if you have any more questions, please let me know. You might have some questions about strings or the throws exception stuff. Just drop a comment and I'll do my best to explain it to you. You're not going to understand some of it until a little bit later when you get into object-oriented programming, but I tried my best to keep it as informative as I could. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, rate, and comment.